Welcome back to Wholesaling with Mike. I hope your brains have been swirling with thoughts, ideas, challenging your beliefs, coming up with a game plan, being super excited about getting your first or next deal done, and of course, taking action. I'm going to assume that you've given thought to your definite major purpose, written down some affirmations, and that you started your morning routine. As you see these things improving in your life, please swing by my Facebook page and leave a comment. And also be sure to pay this stuff forward. When you see the power of your morning routine, for example, go ahead and tell a friend that you know might benefit. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into today's lesson. This is actually a mini lesson. It's quite literally going to be just a few minutes long. If you're participating in this program, you probably already know what wholesaling is, but for the sake of creating a program that leaves no stone unturned, we're going to start by reviewing exactly what a wholesale deal is. Wholesaling defined. Wholesaling, also known as flipping houses, is a real estate investing technique whereby a real estate investor, that's you, a wholesaler, puts a property, normally a distressed property, under contract, meaning they legally agree to buy it, and assigns or resells the property to another investor for a profit. The process. Step 1, you're going to find a distressed property, which can mean one of two things. Number 1, it's either a distressed or motivated seller. We're going to talk about some reasons that make a seller motivated. Or number 2, a physically distressed property, something that's damaged. Maybe there's a hole in the roof, it's boarded up, but a physically distressed property. Step 2 is going to be to negotiate a purchase price with the seller between 50 and 70% of the after repaired value, which is the value of the house if it were in perfect condition. Remember that because this seller is motivated, this will be a win-win situation. Step 3, you're going to sign a purchase contract with the seller. And step 4, you're going to take that price that you agreed on and mark it up anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000, depending on how cheap you can get it under contract. Step 5 is going to be to market the property to other real estate investors. This includes landlords, rehabbers, international buyers, and these people are actually, and somewhat surprisingly, all around you. And I'll show you how to find them as we get through this program. Step 6, once you find your buyer, simply assign the contract to them with your profit documented as an assignment fee. Some contracts won't allow assignments, and you'll do something that we call double closing. Step 7, send the contracts to your friendly neighborhood title company. Step 8, close, and my favorite part, collect a fat check. Step 9, which would have to be my second favorite part. So go ahead and repeat the process. Now we're going to jump into some myths because there's a lot of stuff that I want to clear up about wholesaling. These are some of the most common myths that I hear all the time. The first one, my favorite, wholesaling is illegal, or no, actually even more my favorite, it's a scam. Okay, I used to hear that all the time, even from people who mean well, like family, until you bring home the first check. So let me be clear. Wholesaling, when done properly, is 100% legal in all 50 states. This is because you're not collecting a commission. Rather, you're a principal to a real estate transaction and you have a vested interest in it. In the case of an assignment, your contract is actually a tangible asset. You are the only one who can buy that house. So let's say you have a contract and it's written for, to purchase a property for $100,000. And the seller signs, and the next day, someone comes along and offers $1 million for the house. That seller cannot sell it to that buyer because you are the only one who can buy that house. So you're legally the only one that can buy that house, and therefore, well, actually also let's add here that the contract has an assignability clause that the seller has signed off on, meaning that they allow you to sell the right to purchase that house to whomever you please. So you're well within your right to sell that asset. Now, when double closing or flipping a house, which we'll talk about later, you're simply an investor. You're looking to buy and resell this home for a profit. Whether you resell it in an hour or resell it in 10 years is entirely up to you. Number 2, you need a realtor's license to flip properties. again, this is false, and false number one for reasons that we just mentioned above. Now, if you are a licensed realtor, you can still wholesale, and you do have some additional benefits there, such as the ability to collect commissions, although I actually discourage this for reasons we're going to discuss later. And you also have the ability to show properties. Entering a property without direct consent of the owner or having a real estate license is actually trespassing and considered illegal, although wholesalers and investors and buyers actually do it quite regularly. Number three, you need cash and or credit to do deals. This one I'm going to give true and false. The fact is you don't need cash or credit to do deals. Truly, I have done deals without even 1 single cent invested in the deal or without expending even a dime on marketing. In my first deal, for example, I merely marketed another wholesaler's deal on free classified sites. I actually used Craigslist to find a buyer, and absolutely no money was spent from my pocket. But doing deals this way with absolutely no money can actually limit the amount of or the types of deals that you can do. So the more money you have, the faster and more often you will be able to do deals. And it varies. I mean, you can do deals with as little as $10, or you can do, from $10 to $1,000 to put deposits on properties and tie up contracts, or you can use a small marketing budget to attract both buyer and seller leads. Now, that being said, you can do your first deal with absolutely no money and then use the profits from that first deal to invest into your marketing to attract later deals. Number four, simultaneous closings are no longer legal. Simultaneous closings. Okay, we're going to talk about this later in a lot more detail, but here's the Cliff Notes version. When not assigning the contract, we flip the property using two separate contracts. One is between you and the seller, and the other is between you and your end buyer. Now, the end buyer obviously wires in the money for the property. And back in the day, some title companies would use that buyer's funds that's meant for what they call the B2C transaction and use it to pay for the first transaction, the A to B, which is between you and the seller, and would refer to this as a simultaneous close. Now, this actually is illegal. You cannot use the end buyer's funds to fund your deal with the seller. They have to be two distinct and separate transactions. So the money that the buyer puts up can only be used for that second sale. It can't be used again in that first part of the deal. So what you're going to do is you'll use transactional funding, which is actually super easy to get. Don't be scared by the name. It doesn't require any funding or any credit. It's basically a 24-hour loan that allows you to complete the first part of the deal, the transaction between you and the motivated seller. It does not cost anything up front. The lender just takes back about 1% of the amount that they loaned, and only after the deal closes. It's no out-of-pocket cost. So let's say you have a $10,000 profit on a deal, and the house costs $50,000. The transactional funder will actually wire in the $50,000, and they'll charge you $500 to get the deal done for that very short-term loan. And so instead of netting $10,000, you'll net $9,500. Okay, next, the market is saturated with competition. I actually love this one. So I got a couple things to say about this. First, this is a pessimistic, limiting attitude of lack. If you possess this type of attitude, you probably will not be successful in this business anyway. You absolutely need to have an abundance mentality and know beyond any doubt that there is more than enough. Number two, the fact that there are too many wholesalers. Yes, this profession is gaining a lot of popularity. I mean, years ago, a lot of people didn't even know that it existed. But you have to ask yourself, are there too many doctors? Are there too many lawyers? The demand is there. And as Robert Kiyosaki, who is famous for talking about real estate as an investment, he always states it's a great investment vehicle because people are always going to need somewhere to live. And in fact, you can choose to look at this in one of two ways. You can look at other wholesalers as competition, or you can look at it as partnership. I've made far more money partnering with other wholesalers than I have on my own. I mean, think about it. Let's say you want to flip a house that you have under contract. will you benefit from sending it to just, let's say you have 1,000 buyers, or if you send it to your 1,000 buyers and 1,000 buyers that 20 other wholesalers have for a total of 20,000 buyers? I mean, if one of your direct buyers wants it, great, you give it to them. Keep 100% of the profit. But if not, this is your backup plan. You use the other wholesaler's buyer as backup and then just split the profits with them. It's always better to have 50% of something than 100% of nothing. And vice versa, you can go ahead and market other people's deals, especially when you don't have deals of your own. It just makes sense, to partner here, and it also makes people want to work with you. Another thing here is that wholesaling actually has a very high barrier to entry. You'll often hear that the first deal is the hardest, and in my experience, this is 100% true. After all, you're learning here. You don't have your buyers list set up yet, you don't have your system set up yet, you aren't very well known, and it can take some time. Of course, I'm going to show you how to expedite the process, but know that it takes. Another thing here is it takes hearing a lot of no's, and this business requires getting rejected quite often before you get that deal done, especially that first deal. And the reality is most people are quitters, and most people simply cannot handle this, for a variety of reasons, and they simply quit too soon. Next, I want to talk about Pareto's principle. Now, this was an economist, and he's famous for creating what you may have heard of, which is the 80-20 rule. And this 80-20 rule is true in so many areas of life that it is almost unbelievable. But I challenge you to try this. Now, essentially, Pareto's principle says that essentially 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes. So, meaning, let's say you run a business with regular customers, 20% of those customers will be responsible for 80% of complaints. So let's go ahead and apply this to wholesaling, the way it can be applied to most businesses. 20% of the wholesalers in any given area, the top 20%, will make 80% of the money. So let's say we take the profits among 100 wholesalers in a week, and the total profits come to $1 million. That means 20 wholesalers make $40,000 each that week. So that's $800,000 divided by 20. So in 1 week, 20 of them make 40,000, while the other 80 wholesalers will have to divvy up the remaining scraps. 200,000 divided by 80, and each of them will profit $2,500 for that week. So don't be so concerned with the number of participants, the number of wholesalers, many of whom, by the way, are also just working part-time, but focus instead on being in the top 20%. And of course, I will show you how to get there. Okay, and next, I want you to realize that you can do this virtually. Let's say your home market isn't super hot. You can wholesale virtually, and some people actually think this is a myth as well. But let me tell you, I have not visited or even seen about 90% of the properties that I have flipped. This can absolutely be done virtually. And lastly, I want to touch on inventory. Let's bring up some statistics here. So I am a statistics guy. Now, Florida right now is a buyer's market. Properties are flying right now. And let's look at the inventory here alone. Recognize, number one, that this does not include any shadow foreclosure inventory of foreclosed homes that are being held by the banks and not put onto the market at this time. It doesn't include the thousands of new foreclosures, divorces, evictions, and some other motivated seller situations that actually present themselves every single day. So right now we have properties that are owner occupied for sale, over 280,000. Non-owner occupied over 190,000. Distressed properties as of today almost 30,000. Pre-foreclosed properties over 20,000. Foreclosed properties 9,000. Upside down properties or over 7,000, and active for sale over 6,000. And how many of these will it take to really make a difference in your life? I mean, you can do 2 deals a month and make more than the average person working 60 hours a week. You can easily make 6 figures a year doing 2 deals a month. So just some statistics to think about. Next, I want to talk about the characteristics of a successful wholesaler. Number one, the successful wholesaler realizes that nothing is free. Despite the reality that wholesaling requires no cash or no credit, some resources will need to be spent. If not money, it will be time dedicated to your craft. Sacrifices are going to have to be made. You're going to have to sacrifice things like hanging out, maybe not working on weekends, watching TV, listening to the radio. You will have to make sacrifices for the things that you want in life. Number two quality of a successful wholesaler is someone who is self-motivated and accountable, someone who is disciplined. And if you're not a disciplined person at this point in time, that's fine. I'm gonna show you how to cultivate this through this program, and anyone can do this. You just got to believe in yourself and be dedicated and want this. But again, you've got to be self-motivated because you will no longer have a boss to tell you what to do or to hold you accountable. If you want to sleep until noon or you don't feel like working today, no one's going to be there to stop you. Maybe until you're absolutely broke and it's too late, and your house is getting foreclosed on or you're getting evicted. So again, you've really got to be a self-starter here. Number three, you operate consistently. You've got to treat this business like a business. Otherwise, it becomes a very expensive hobby and things can pile up and become overwhelming very, very quickly. Number four, the successful wholesaler operates with a sense of urgency. Quite simply, you cannot steal houses in slow motion. I like to look at this as a game, and you want to win this game. Learn from my early mistakes. I've had seller leads come to me, and I actually put off calling back until it was convenient for me. Maybe until the weekend, only to find out that when I made the call, sometimes not even 3 days later, that you remember these people are desperate. If you don't pick up the phone, they'll go somewhere else. And I found that to be true. I would call and this person talked to another wholesaler and the property was already under contract and lost. Me waiting 1 day could have easily cost me $10,000. So always operate with a sense of urgency. Number five, the successful wholesaler is focused on being productive over being busy. Some people just like to be busy. You can be busy for 8 hours a day, but what did you get done? If you're not putting money in the bank or on your way to putting money in the bank, it's a waste. So the successful wholesaler is results oriented. Number six, characteristic of a successful wholesaler is someone who follows a routine. It's really easy in this business to get distracted or to not know what to do day after day. And I find that the successful wholesaler will focus on the key main tasks every single day to ensure that the most important, which are the results producing tasks, are completed daily. You're going to have to prioritize your schedule. Number seven, someone who is ideally organized. Now again, you don't have to be this super organized person and conform to any specific system. You don't have to be a neat freak or compulsively organized, but to a degree organization is necessary. A lot of leads are going to be coming your way. You're going to need to keep track of details. Things like, has the latest lead been called back? Has your offer been responded to? When does your inspection period or when does your contract expire? You got to keep track of all of these things. Also, while we're on that note, you've got to track your results. You want to know, how well does this form of prospecting work versus maybe this alternative? How are you spending your marketing dollars? How many bandit signs does it take in your market to get you a deal? Number eight, someone who practices personal growth and self-development. We spent a lot of time on this in the previous module. A great quote I like is from Jim Rohn. Again, that's Tony Robbins' original mentor. Success is not to be pursued. It is to be attracted by the person you become. Number nine characteristic of a successful wholesaler is one who networks. You really are who you know, especially in this business. The cliche, no man is an island, is absolutely true. You need a team, be it partners, buyers, sellers, your title company, possibly an attorney, as you start doing more and more business. And we're actually going to dedicate an entire module to networking. But I just want to let you know that anyone can do this. You can be the loudest, most extroverted person on the planet and network, but you can also, contrary to popular belief, be the shyest, most timid, and introverted individual and still pull this off successfully. It does not matter. Number 10, takes action. Don't overthink things. I will tell you from personal experience, sometimes the simplest answers really are the best. Sometimes you can actually think yourself out of a deal. Another problem I see quite often is people feel like they need to know everything before they start. Okay, well, I can't put this under contract because I don't know what to do or what the title company does. You will learn along the way. You've just got to go ahead and take that first step. I know I've used gym analogies before, but you cannot go in and you can have a rough idea, and it's good to have a rough idea of what you want to do when you go to the gym, but you can't expect to know, I have to know how to do every exercise perfectly before I go. No, just go and you will learn along the way. Otherwise it will lead to analysis paralysis. So instead of ready, aim, fire, we're going to be ready, fire, aim. Trust me, it works. Number 11, believes in themselves. You've got to have belief and faith in yourself. This goes back to the module, our previous module, and your affirmations, and daily routine will help you with this. And finally, the last one, number 12, is someone who fails forward. This may be the most important thing on this list of characteristics. As I mentioned before, you will take more rejection in this business than probably any other hobby, business, or any other endeavor in your life. The average person cannot handle this. You've got to be persistent. You've got to realize that rejection is part of the game and you've got to just move through it. Also, you're going to make mistakes along the way. It's going to happen. There's no doubt about it. And in addition to that, deals will fall through. Title issues will come up. There will be nasty sellers. There will be nasty buyers. You're going to get yelled at. Half the time, maybe more than half the time, you won't have any idea what you're doing. And that's where I come in. But you have to persevere. So the formula here, effort plus commitment plus desire plus persistence and a little bit of patience is going to equal your success. Let's go ahead and talk about the rest of the course. In this order, number one, the next thing we're going to talk about is prospecting. We're going to learn where to find motivated sellers. And I've broken this up a few different ways. The first one is, are the free leads, where you spend zero money, but a lot more time. The next module, we're going to talk about finding motivated sellers that cost some money, usually less than $100 a month. I have techniques where you maybe use $5 a month, $10 a month. You spend some money and you spend some time. Next, we're going to talk about finding motivated sellers that cost more money. It's going to be more than $100 a month, and there's no cap on this. You can spend $100,000 a month, more money, less, or even, I don't want to say no time, but very, very little time. After that, we're going to talk about qualifying leads, then evaluating leads, then negotiating deals, contracting, making the offers, selling the properties, and closing. And once we've gone through this cycle, there will also be bonus modules. A lot of that will talk about different areas of self-discipline, time management, a lot of internal game, and so on and so forth. So, what is a motivated seller? Now, we already talked about the two types of motivated sellers, the first of which being a distressed property. And a lot of these you can see from the street. A lot of times there'll be papers stuck to the door, and this can be a notice of foreclosure, a sheriff's notice, an eviction notice, code violations, fines, things like that. And there are also some other telltale signs, such as tarps on the roof, trash in the yard, unkept landscaping, overgrown grass. Basically, the dirtier, uglier, and smellier the property, the better. I actually remember looking at a property on a foreclosure bus trip. I walked into this house, and seriously, this thing smelled like cat piss and vomit. Like, I mean, absolutely just nauseating stuff. And my mentor at the time looks over to me and says, "Do you smell that?" And I'm thinking, like, how could you not smell that? And he takes a deep breath and he goes, "Smells like money." And at that point, that's something that really sticks with me. I was like, okay, I get it. I get it. And in fact, this same guy made a majority of his initial wealth flipping hurricane damaged homes after one of our major hurricanes down here in South Florida. So, first we have distressed property. Next, we've got the distressed seller. This is someone who has to sell their property. And we've got to make the distinction between someone who wants to sell and has to sell. So during this initial interview process, when you're speaking with the seller, you've got to discover the motivation. If a homeowner says to you, for example, we really want to upgrade and move to a bigger house in the next town, that's someone who wants to move and they're not a prospect. That's not what you're doing. However, if you have someone who says maybe, we had to pay for dad's surgery after he lost his job and now we haven't made our house payment in 3 months, that's a person that needs to sell. Now, if you think about this, if you poll 10 people who are selling who want to sell their house, 9 out of the 10 are not desperate. They're not motivated. But 1 in 10 probably is. So don't be discouraged when your offer or your phone call or your letter gets rejected or even no response 9 out of 10 times. Just stick in there and wait for that one more time. That's what you want. So some examples of motivated sellers. First one, pre-foreclosure. These are people who are 30, 60, and 90 days late on their mortgage. I'll show you how to find this. When someone gets a pre-foreclosure or a lis pendens notice, it is recorded in public record, and you can find these people. Another one, divorce. People who, divorcees getting divorced. Another funny story from my mentor. Lex had a guy once, he tells this story, who said he would basically take any amount that Lex offered on his property. And Lex threw him something ridiculously low. I don't remember what the number was. And the seller accepted. And he absolutely could not believe it. It was just, he almost said it jokingly. And the guy said, okay. And it turns out that this guy had agreed as a part of terms of the divorce that the wife would get the profits from the sale of the house. So I'm going to go ahead and guess that that was a bitter one. But these things happen. Next, probate. This is an absolutely fantastic, one of, if not the best source of motivated sellers, and certainly one of my favorites. This is when someone dies, someone passes away. It's a fact of life. It happens. And probate is essentially a fancy word for who gets what. So just imagine, let's say I'm in Florida, a lot of elderly people here. Someone passes away. They leave the house to a kid who's in college. Maybe they're 20 years old and they live in New York. Now, this kid has a house sitting vacant. They're probably responsible for in some time for either taking care of or paying taxes or whatever on, and you say to them, hey kid, this property is just sitting here. They probably don't know what it's worth, but let's say it's worth 100,000, and say, hey, you want to just hold on to this, or how about I send you $50,000 cash and you never have to worry about it again? Most people in that situation will say, yeah, I'll take the 50,000 cash. And then you just picked up a huge, probably, $30,000, $40,000 worth of profit right there. So probate is simply who gets what. Another source, absentee owners, people who own property and live out of the state. Another one, frustrated landlords. Now think about this one. Landlording sounds good. I mean, I get passive income every month, but after dealing with tenants who don't pay their rent at all or always pay late, various repairs, vacancy, realtor commission, those 2 a.m. calls that, hey, the water is running or something's broken. A lot of landlords understandably get burnt out. They just don't want to do it anymore. And I believe the statistics here in Florida is that the average landlord lasts about 3 years. So again, frustrated landlords can be a great source of motivated sellers. Next, military. Military families have to move kind of for obvious reasons. And lastly, I just want to mention, we're going to close here in a second, but you are a problem solver. This was actually a huge mental hurdle for me. In the beginning, I felt like I was taking advantage of people and their situations. And I've heard other people, talk to this before. So, and I kind of, didn't take it seriously at the time. So I kind of want to stress this. But I felt like I was taking advantage of people and their situations. But you have to realize that you are helping. These are people that have issues that they have to deal with, whether you choose to get involved or not. And if you don't, their alternative is usually much, much worse. So, someone in pre foreclosure, for example, can sell their house to you for a really cheap price and either downgrade to like a condo or a rental unit with virtually no adverse consequences. Or if you don't step in and take action, the other option is that the bank can come in, foreclose on their home, leave them destitute and without any money, and put a foreclosure on their credit score that will prevent them from getting any loans for at least the next 7 years of their life. So I want you to really think about the process from this new perspective and know that you're creating win 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 situations. The seller wins because they get rid of the property. You win because you make some money, and the end buyer wins because they get a discounted home. So we're going to go ahead and close this module here. I want you to continue working on your homework, which is forming your definite major purpose. Even if you don't know what that is and it's not clear yet, take some notes, jot down some ideas. It can be very basic. Write, it should actually be written by now, but write and start saying your affirmations daily, preferably 2 times a day. Continue your morning routine. And at this point, if you have any questions about the process of wholesaling, I have no doubt that they'll actually be answered later on in the program. But if you'd like, you can go ahead and shoot an email over to support, or on the Facebook group, you can go ahead and post a question there. So on the next module, we're going to pick up from here and look at where to find these motivated sellers. And I'll see you there.